Well, Marietta Tanner.
Right. That is I.
And I am Jeanne Robinson. I wanted to ask you a beginning question, introduction.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand it, you have been in some religious community or another all of your life.
Indeed, but it started out as a Baptist.
I'm aware of that. Would you give a brief description of your evolution in religion?
You mean as far as becoming a Unitarian?
No, as far as starting out as a Baptist, what was that?
Well, I was always not very satisfied with my Baptist education. And I was always kind of a non-believer because of my father, who was an atheist. But my mother was deeply religious and deeply Baptist, and we always went to Sunday school. But then when my father would come home, my father would foo-foo most of that stuff. And he would sing about it, say little things like, songs that he felt were mocking. And my mother hated that. And then the thing that she really hated was he always entertained his beer-drinking friends on Sunday. And they would always sing in loud voices, all the spirituals and everything. And she resented it. Listen to them, drunk as they are, out there singing spirituals. She hated it.
At the same time, did you have a relative in your parents' generation who was a minister?
Never.
Never.
No, my grandmother was a founder of a church and all that. They were all, that was my father's mother. And my mother's father was a deacon.
A deacon?
So, yes, in Second Baptist Church down here. He was a deacon there and very religious.
So, you were a Baptist and you didn't live in Willow Grove.
I lived in Willow Grove, yeah.
You were born and raised in
I was born in, yeah.
Okay. And then you were in New York.
Well, I went to New York after I finished college, and then I went to New York to visit a girlfriend and stayed. So that's what happened there.
Contagious, huh?
Mm-hmm.
When did you first attend Unitarian Society of Germantown?
Really, when I was in New York, I didn't do much attending. Well, in my later years, I went to community church. Although I usually went to ethical culture, and I was very much involved with them because they were doing a lot with the schools, and my children were going to. My son went to the Riverdale school that the ethical culture people ran. But even before that, even before I was married, I used to go to hear the speakers at the Ethical Culture Society.
So when did you return to the Delaware Valley?
Oh, that was not until the 90s.
The 90s. Is that when you first joined or became acquainted with Unitarians?
Oh, no, I was very much acquainted with the Unitarians because I used to do a lot with the Unitarians. Let's see, it was in the 80s because I was, in New York with the community church. Well, it's really in the 70s because Harrington, the minister there, was very much involved in the whole situation around the two worlds, two countries. He had a ministry around that, and the Model Cities program and all. He was very active in that whole thing, and I was too. I really had a job with the Model Cities program. I was the director of several. It was a college. It was a program where we prepared veterans and people who really hadn't gotten their college degrees for teaching. And so I directed that program, and I was very active with them. Because Harrington was very vocal about the fact that we had two countries in the United States, two nations. And he did a lot around that. So I used to go there. And also I had some friends who were there. So my children went and I went.
And when did you first begin attending Unitarian Society of Germantown?
I started attending about. I went to Restoration first, and then when I came back here in '92 and '93. So it was about '93 when I started coming to Restoration, and then I came here to see this church also during that time. And one time I came and I met Fran Emery, whom I knew from having worked with her and gone to school with her for a little while. And so she said, I said, oh, I'm looking for a church. She said, this is it. She didn't give me time to make any decisions. She just said, this is it. So this was it. And she was here, and I said, oh, that's great. And so we became, I used to come to see her even when I was in New York. I'd visit her family. Yeah, so I knew Fran from way back. And so I just started coming. Oh, she decided for me. She made up my mind, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What were some of the major issues in the church and in the community when you started?
Well, there were a lot of issues in the community at the time. And one of my friends was very much involved with the integrating of the community. She was working with this whole system to help Mount Airy not be a community that was blockbusted, you know. So and she worked with the Quakers, but I ran around with her a lot. She was a professor at Temple, social work there, and so I did some things with her, and I was involved. You know, I didn't really ever join the group because I lived in Willow Grove, but I used to go with her because she used to attend these meetings about blockbusting and how to keep this community integrated, and you know, and it was very interesting because she was involved with a lot of the things that the Quakers were doing. So I went with her a lot. We were very good friends.
How did the USG respond to the issues of blockbusting?
I didn't see much at all. The main thing that people seemed to be concerned about here was homelessness, and I worked with those people who came in here from the very beginning. I always prepared meals and stuff because I had plenty of food, and I always had a garden, so I always would prepare food for them, and so I did that. And then I was interested in the social action things right from the start. And one of the things we did soon after I came here, we had a book group, and we were discussing Friedman's book about let's see, what was it? Globalization.
Oh.
And that was very interesting. And we had a fabulous group, and I'm still friendly with them. Dennis Brunn was a part of that. So he was always doing something in social action. And then I was always involved with the United Nations Association of Greater Philadelphia. And I
Was that a
brought that up.
carryover from New York?
Yeah, I worked with them there. So I just put that. And then when I came here, they had somebody else who was doing the UNO project, but they weren't doing very much. And I asked if I could help her. The next thing I know, she said, here. I don't even know what her name is.
It could be a lot of help.
But she just said, here, you know, and she gave me, I said, oh, well, I didn't, I said, well, you know, she says, this is great. If you'll do it, it'll be wonderful. And that was it. I never stopped working with that after that. And that was before I was a member, because I understand, when I look at the button, I see that I became a member about 2000. And I think I was the chairperson of the Social Action Committee before I was a member. So anyway, that's how you moved into the social action at USG.
Mm-hmm. Can you say something about the racial climate at USG when Fran invited you to attend?
Well, Fran was so well received here that I sort of I think little bit of her welcomes, was they all knew that she and I would we would always be together, and people were always mixing us up. Aren't you Fran Emery? I say no, we all look alike, but I'm Marietta. But I think I was pretty well received. However, I did notice that there was always a kind of thing. Oh, did you do that? Like I'd do something, like write up something, or did you do that? I remember I wrote a play about the nickel and dime. The woman who wrote the book about nickel and dime. That about how low wage workers are treated, and I wrote this skit around it. And the woman here who is very, very active and does a lot of things with playwriting, she acted in the play, and she was fabulous. And Robert Anu helped me develop it. It was good, And then I heard everybody saying that she wrote it. And I said, I'll have you know Marietta J. Tanner wrote that. What? It's like, you did it? It's amazing. So I said, well, I had to be tested, People weren't sure whether I could do anything, So, you got that kind of stuff, that people are sort of amazed. And when you say you did something, you did, I would say something like, something I did in New York, or I used to go around with, somebody, they'd say, oh, it's like, you. So you got a little, you got a little feeling like, you weren't really, they weren't really sure about, whether or not you could do things. And I got that feeling a little bit. But other than that, I really met some, I think, genuine people. Mm-hmm. Genuine people who are white too, And I had a lot of fun with them here. I mean, people like Rudy Sprinkle and Andrea, they were always friends. And the Schoonmakers, the Schoonmakers. Now we loved to do gardening, so we could talk about that forever. I never did get him up my house to dig anything, but he always gave me good advice. And so I had, I had people that I was very friendly with, and I liked their kids, and I always went to see them at in the plays and all that they were in. His grandkids, they were in plays in Cheltenham, and I used to go to hear his son sing and his grandson sing and everything. And so just people I just really genuinely liked, and so I began to not be so aware of whether or not you were black or not, And I think this church broke down a lot of those barriers that I had definitely constructed. Although I've always had friends who were Jewish or Caucasian, But I think I met some genuine people here.
Of these many, many people here, who were the major players when you were growing?
Here at the church?
I know Fran was.
Well, yeah, I named some of them, but I was always active. I worked very closely with, this is as well as I know her and love her. She doesn't come anymore. She was in charge of she just ran the church practically. What was her name? Turn it off while I think. Oh, what is her name? You know her. I
know her?
You know her. She ran everything here. Now she just doesn't come anymore at all. She had gray hair. She was. She had.
She black or white?
No, white, and she had gray hair. And Violet Hay. Violet and I worked together wonderfully. I was crazy about Violet, and we did a program called the Lincoln Drive Forums. And so what I thought we were doing, I was the chairperson of the Social Action Committee at that time. What we were trying to do was the issues that USC said, we should be involved in. We would try to have a session around those. And so we would do, they were talking about low wages, and we had some low wage workers to come here. There was a woman and she came and she talked about how she had to go all the way up to Norristown for a job. And there was a lot of prejudice in that whole thing about where she could work. It was very good. And then I also wrote that play about the nickel and dime. Yeah, that was a part of that whole Lincoln Drive Forum thing we were doing. And then the best one we ever had, well, there was another man here whom I thought was just wonderful too. And I can't call his name either, but I thought he was just wonderful. And he was a professor at I think at Rowan University. But he had written this book about progressives. Mm-hmm. And he was really just a lovely guy. He died so unexpectedly, and it was just I was just very, very heartbroken about that. But anyway, he helped me with developing when they were going to have this whole thing about evolution. Mm-hmm. About they wanted to introduce the system. No, not the theory of evolution. They wanted to talk about creationism. They wanted to introduce creationism as a companion piece to evolution, and it was happening up in Dover, but it was happening all. They wanted to push it all over the state, mm-hmm. And so a lot of us rose up, and this man really helped with that, and we had a really good session here. And this man came from England. He said he saw because we were trying to put things in the paper, and I put up a lot of flyers along Germantown Avenue about it. I used to walk around putting up flyers and giving out flyers. I mean, I was real rah-rah at the time. And he saw a flyer and came, and he was a professor from the College of London or something like that, but he was very active and very knowledgeable about Darwin, and he spoke, and he was just really riveting. So it was good.
I need to ask you a question. When you say they wanted to put creationism next to Christianity?
Well, no. Creationism. They wanted to put that next to evolution.
And who
they wanted
is
to make.
they?
There was a whole group, and in fact, there's some people who behaved as if they had. Well, they were legitimate professors, mm-hmm. And this was upstate, but they were trying to make it a part of the curriculum in Pennsylvania.
The public education.
In public education, yeah, they were really moving at the time, and so we had a pretty good forum about it, and we wrote, we petitioned, and so I thought it was very well done. That was very well done, but not because I had done all that work, but I guess I did putting out the flyers. It did help, but the fact that this guy came from England. And just really, he was really riveting. He was wonderful. Mm-hmm. So and I did that, and I met a lot of people who seemed to like me because I was involved in the peace movement with the United Nations group, and I had a rally down in front of I organized a rally. People came from all over.
In front of what?
At the Constitution Center.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And it was about, I forget specifically what the issue was, but I know. I think it was against the war in Iraq. I think that's what it was about, yeah. So, I think I made friends because I went on all this stuff with people. I was very much involved, not just in movements that were black or about what was happening with black people, but with the peace movement and with the UN, yeah, and the anti-war things and evolution. I was interested in all of that. So I think I made a lot of friends here.
You're very busy.
Oh, I have been. My sister says, I'm glad you're going away. You'll have some rest. I do a lot of stuff.
There's a question here. You've said much about your role, and actually there should be an S on that word because it sounds like if there was a pot worth stirring,
yeah.
you brought a spoon.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Well, I sort of did, yeah, I did. I would help with things if I could.
So over the years, going back to the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
what has changed here at USG?
I think attitudes have changed, and I don't know whether it's just because I know everybody, but I think there's been a little bit more acceptance of black people here. I mean, there were some people who had a little reluctance. I remember when Kent was coming here, and we were looking for a minister, and I was going through the questionnaires. Some people said, Oh, I wouldn't want to have a black minister.
Really?
Oh yeah.
And when did he come? 10 years ago, or is it more than
Oh,
that now?
he's been here about 15 years now.
15?
Yeah. It doesn't seem that long, but Kent's been here a while. And then there were people who said, well, if we have a black minister, I hope he's not dark. There were all kinds of responses.
Well, they were honest.
They were honest, and they really didn't want a black one. And then I remember the difficulty that they had at Restoration with a black minister. I don't know whether it was because he was also black and gay, but he was also. I think he felt that it had more to do with race. So there's a lot of that subliminal stuff still here, and we know it's still here because I'm amazed that white people are so unaware of their privilege. They aren't aware of it. I mean, people whom I like very well, they don't understand that their skin is a passport to lots of things, which even though they like me very much, I can't really partake of. I don't really partake of. Mm-hmm. But not so much now. But certainly 10 years ago, it's better. The whole climate is better now. It still is. It's better, but we know it's not well because we see what the employment differences are between black college graduates and white college graduates and black high school graduates. We know that it's still there. There's still residuals there, and what black people can do. But it's much different because you walk around the neighborhoods and they're integrated, and people aren't engaged in flight as much as they were. White people are not. And then you see a lot of people who, a lot of couples that are interracial, yeah. And you see people who really get along, entertain white people. It's different now. The whole situation has grown. But of course we know it's not perfect because we still have to say to people, Black Lives Matter, that it's okay to rough up a black woman and shoot her, it's okay in some places. So we know that it's not perfect, but it has come a long way.
Well, speaking of coming a long way, tell me something about the progress of social action committees in the church. It seems like there are a number of them. Have you been in all of them?
Well, if I haven't been in all of them, I've been helping who's ever in them. I'll do something to help them because that's so important to me. I mean, we don't have a sacrament in this church, but to me, social service is that. What you do for others is like praying to God. It's to me. It takes its place. It's you don't go and pray to Virgin Mary. You go and you do something for somebody. I've prepared meals for people. Whatever. If they say, they need somebody to do something, if I have the time, I'll do it. So it's not that I'm, that I have all this time, because I don't, especially now that I'm trying to pack. But I do a lot of stuff because I feel that that's what I'm supposed to do, because I'm a recipient of a lot of largesse, even though, I ain't wealthy, but, I think I'm very lucky, very fortunate. So I do belong to a lot of stuff.
As far as I can tell, the church members are aware that they're very fortunate that you're among them.
Oh, really? Well, thank you for that.
How have you evolved? You've said a lot to that effect.
Yeah, I've evolved a lot. I mean, I really like white people more than I used to.
Is that all of them or some particular?
Well, but I just generally, you have a general feeling, I don't want to have things with her because she's white. I mean, I had that feeling because, there were certainly a lot of strictures, well, they want to associate with you until they learn what you know, until they get your, yeah, well, I've had a lot of that. I've known that to happen to me. I've had that happen to me. They would hang around me because I was doing certain things, and they wanted to absorb that and then take it over. I mean, I've had that happen, really.
You're making it sound like you think I'm surprised.
But in what?
That it happened to you.
It did happen to me. Oh, certainly.
It happens.
It happened. I've had people who would really butter up to you because they wanted you were involved and certainly want to get into your network.
So what changed you?
Well, because I've known genuine people like Barbara Dowdall and people like that who had no axe to grind. It's just friends. It's just friendly, just being friendly, just wanting to support me. Things that I did. And we did a lot of things together. We used to go before she got all these grandchildren. We used to do stuff. We used to go to, if there was something at Princeton, she would drive. We'd go over there and we'd see. We did a lot of things like that. And I really appreciate having her as a friend. And I go to hear her bassoon concerts and stuff too. It's reciprocal. But that's the kind of thing I've had here, and I've enjoyed it.
You're packing, so it's clear you're moving on. However, if you were to, I'm sure you have thought about it, as a matter of fact, what kinds of changes would you like to see
At USJ?
here? Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to see more people involved in ending racism. I'd like to see more people really listen and do something about the white privilege. Having this conference about it, because there's lots of that feeling still here. They're so used to having white privilege that they're unaware of it. And they don't understand it. I mean, they don't understand that white skin is a ticket to anything. Gives you special privileges. And so you see, there's still a lot of that here that they aren't aware. And people aren't aware of what white privilege has meant, that you have certain financial advantages, that definitely come from having been privileged when, for instance, my grandmother moved to this area where we live in 1908. Very limited in the property she could buy. In fact, she was strictly redlined. And they said, well, these are the Negro plots. And so it was strictly. So now she had bought property on the other side of the railroad tracks. It would be worth much more today, or let's face it. So you see, and you see that, and having lived here all my life, and watched the things that we endured as residents in that community of Willow Grove and Addington, you see what an evolution has gone on. I went to some reunions. In fact, the last one I went to was our 60th with my high school class, and they wanted to know, well, what was it like to be in that class? And I really was bold enough to tell them, hell.
Because you were at Abington High School.
I was at Abington High School, yeah. And everybody, there was a lot of prejudice. My sister had a fabulous voice, but she sang, well, both of us, well, I sang pretty good too. And we had this teacher in junior high school, her name was Miss Forrest. Mrs. Forrest, I'm going to definitely say that because I always talk about her. I sang the Berceuse from Jocelyn at my graduation, junior high school graduation. And, it was a big thing. And, as a matter of fact, I said, I'm going to really find out if she was fired after that.
She left?
She was gone in the next year or so. Because a year before that, she had let my sister sing the solo. And she always promoted us. I mean, I was in all the choral things, and my sister would have a solo part in everything she did, and she was really involved with Howard Hanson's music. Now he was the big, he was from the University of Rochester, and that was he was the big composer. He was an American composer. I still listen to his music and still can sing some of the songs because she was promoting this modern music, this classical composer.
Think she might have been dismissed.
I think she might have
because she
been.
allowed
I really do because
you and your sister to
she gave us
participate.
so much recognition. And then when we got to high school, I was going to say the prejudice bee, which he was. He told my sister that he didn't really want her in the chorus because he didn't want to bother with untrained voices. Everybody in there was untrained, but that's how he felt. But they somehow forced him to let her sing, but she never had any. She never did, and she was more. Well, she was shyer even than I was. If you ever could believe it, I was very shy.
Yes,
Well, anyway, but she, she didn't really promote. She did sing all over the place, but mostly in church choirs and that kind of thing. But that's that we've seen an evolution now where you see much different. The children are treated much differently than they were, and we have kids in all kinds of courses there. I mean, if you were a star, as far as intellect was concerned, they wouldn't let you take the classical course. You could take some Latin, but you couldn't be in the classical course. And you couldn't be, this one boy who was a genius, mathematical genius really was. He became a Tuskegee Airman, and he did all kinds of things, when he finally broke through. Yeah, but in high school they didn't want him to take, he wanted to be in the scientific course, but they let him take the physics and all that, but his diploma was a general diploma when he graduated. But he took all those courses because he just loved it, and they couldn't stop him, and he was, really brilliant.
well, that's one of the things that it seems to me the innocence about white privilege,
Right.
and especially how it affects education and
Oh, yeah.
possibilities.
They don't really understand it all. You see, the kids in my school, when they at my 60th reunion, they were amazed that I had really done as much as I did. They were amazed that and when I looked at their condition and mine, they were working in much more menial jobs than me, and yet they were the hot shots. And they would ask me, well, how did you do that? How did you? They were kind of amazed that their white privilege, hadn't really carried them as I had been able to go, and it was really quite something for me to see that. So I did tell them about it. We did. My president of our class, who always did try to push me. He always did. And he wrote me and said, I want you to speak about your experience. And some of the women who were there, someone who used to sing this song all the time, whenever I'd come around, they'd sing, Mammy's little baby like Shotenin, Shotenin.
You're kidding.
Oh, no, dear. That was the way they behaved.
And they were,
and
they
they've
must have
just
been encouraged in a way.
Oh, of course they were. They said, well, we just were having fun.
Right.
We didn't mean to hurt you. I said, oh, you didn't think you're hurting me? Well, what did you think? Didn't you ever see me cry? I did. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're trying to do something that they were doing. They would make fun of you. But some of the teachers wouldn't allow it. Like this, we had a gym teacher who was good too. Her name was, I remember her, Miss Mass. She'd say, if you could play hockey or do something like that, she would definitely push you forward. She wouldn't let color be a problem. But most of them went along with that baby. They were really right into that.
Being taught.
Oh yeah, the kids were really being taught to behave that way, and they were allowed to. Yeah. Hmm.
Let's get to you. The 7 principles.
Yeah.
What of those principles has your, thinking of the principles, what has your involvement meant to you? I don't have the 7 principles with me. Do you happen to have them?
I happen to have them in my head.
Oh, good. So you can
All 7, but I definitely will talk about the first,
Okay.
which is, that we should respect every human being. And that was something that I really worked at, because I'm not sure that I did either. I I wasn't really ready for that. But I really learned to be much more accepting, and certainly I've learned to be more accepting of people who are gay, who are, I've learned that, and I've seen really. I certainly did have certain. I would say, that they had a right to their lives and all, but the whole thing about gay marriage and all like that, I really evolved with that. And my attitude toward white people, Caucasians, has changed. I was much closer to people who were Jewish than I was to the rest of them. But now I think, I understand the Jews have certain things about being the chosen people too, and they have, they're not.
Not privileged, only chosen.
Yeah, that's right. They have that too.
What are the changes you see needing to happen in the future at USG?
Well, what I would like to see is more people take advantage of some of the programs that we have here, like, as I said, the ones that Kay is working on the white privilege thing. Mm-hmm. That to me is like the last hurdle that they really need to overcome, because I can see, even in talking with people whom I like very much, that they're not even aware of their special advantages.
Do you think that would influence people's interest in the Ending Racism Committee if they were more aware?
Well, I think if they wanted to become more aware, they would have something to do with ending racism. But, a lot of people think, well, I don't need that. But they do, because people still have very residual, deeply buried, but still extant prejudices. And we could work on them much more in this church, I think.
How would that make the church stronger?
I think people would feel that they could really be a part of this church. Now this was very interesting to me. At GA this year, everything passed very quickly about gay rights, and reproductive rights and all like that, reproductive rights. But Black Lives Matter didn't. That was a struggle. They didn't want to they didn't want to differentiate enough to say there's a difference between having a black life and a white life. In other words, well, all lives matter was the response, which we know, but black lives don't matter as much. And we know that.
Did you have the sense that the group at GA did not know that?
Well, there were white people there who protested the idea that we should put forth this idea that Black Lives Matter. That's the point. They didn't want to do that. There was reluctance. And I think that's like the last hurdle that people have to get over. I mean, you know that Chinese people are much more readily received. They come here and, they can... I used to really get very annoyed in New York when I would see that they were living on Park Avenue and I couldn't come near there. It's still very restricted. that this friend of mine, whom I was close to, young Jewish woman from Germany, she was a refugee. She got a beautiful apartment on Riverside Drive, and I said, "How did you get this place? I mean, I had been all up and down these streets looking for apartment. No way I could get one." There she was. You know, we knew that there was always this privilege, this white privilege, but people here still don't want to see it. So we need to work on that.
Do you think that the connection between white privilege and racism has been clearly made?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I mean, I think racism has a lot to do with the whole economics of white privilege. I mean, people would say such a thing. Well, I've heard this expressed at my union in New York. Well, if you train all those people, if you teach everybody to read, who's going to push the garment trucks?
Really?
I've heard that expressed at my union in New York.
Your teachers union?
Yes. Well, if you teach all the people to read, who's going to push the garment trucks? And to me, that is just what is going on.
Well, it speaks about a caste system.
Yeah, it's right. It is that. And black people were a part of the lower caste. Yeah. And it was in the South, they wanted to stay that way. You know, and you know, it's really true. They'll do anything to keep it that way. Because, you know, you don't have to accomplish as much, you know, if you have the special skin ticket. You know, you can always get a good job. Now
That's now in the past, right?
Oh, it's some of it's still reciprocal. If you come here and you're Italian, you can get a job working on the highway. Now we know we see a few blacks working there now, but that's very recent. Mm-hmm. That's within the last 10 years, last 5 years, I'd almost say, and that's because of a lot of pressure. I know about 4 years ago, some of the pressure on the AFL and CIO unions, well, it's just about one now, but they said they were going to work on that problem. And so we have seen a little breakthrough. But, you know, it was almost impossible since they stopped having the riveting machine where, you know, you'd shake your brains out. They had some blacks using that. But now you don't see any of them driving trucks, you know, nothing like that. So, you know, there's privilege. It's white privilege, and that's economic, certainly. There's plenty of that in there. So they're just not aware of how blacks are denied. They weren't aware. They aren't even aware of that. They'd say, well, the kids, you know, you were denied because you weren't intelligent. And, you know, when Kofi Annan became, I think I've told you that.
No.
No, didn't I? When Kofi Annan became what was he, Secretary General of the United Nations, he was on, I don't listen to his program at all anymore, ever since then. Oh God, I can't call his name, but he has this program on PBS where he interviews people. And he had Kofi Annan on there. And he asked him, do you think you are ready?
For the job?
Yeah. So I was so furious. I called up, wrote everything, the station, asking them to please send me the transcript. They did, but they had excised that part.
They had.
Oh yeah. So, you know, this stuff. This is, you know, our black people. You know, now when I went to New York in the 50s, 40s, I went there in 49. We used to go to all these meetings, and I used to go with a lot of Africans, and they were asking the Africans to accept colonialism because you weren't ready yet to take over your country. And it was, you know, we went to a lot of that stuff. Very, very oh, you'd go and we'd have a fabulous meal with it. It would be, you know, and they were really speaking to these young Africans who were here about going back and supporting colonialism. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of that going on because they felt, you know, the uprising was coming. And it was all about learning how to live with colonialism and forgive and turn the other cheek and all that kind of stuff.
How did you stand it?
Well, furious. And the Africans would get up there and they would say, you know, this is not possible. We're not going to be, you know, we're going to take over our country and all that kind of stuff. But they used to have a lot of that. They were fearing the rebellions in Africa.
I didn't realize it was explicit.
Huh?
I didn't realize it was as explicit as that.
Oh, yes, yeah, very much. And the Phelps Stokes Fund at that time had an Africa House. That's where I met all these people who became leaders in Africa, like the leader of Tanzania and all. I knew a lot of those people. And what they were doing, they were supporting these African students. But the conversation was, you know, how are you going to deal with the British people, or the Americans, or the British who was there, or the French, because you know, you aren't really ready to take over your own government. You know, there's still a lot of that. So, you know, the thing was with black people, the privileged thing is to keep saying that you are less qualified.
And as soon as you get qualified, everything will be all right.
Well, that's the subtlety of it now, I think.
Okay. I have no idea what time it is. However, I want to know what I have not asked you that you would want to say.
What I would want to say, that I consider it a privilege to be here at USG. And even though I'm widely criticized for being here by all my friends, my Baptist, Catholic, Methodist, and other friends, I really think I'd like to see the ideas more widely dispersed. Now, I don't believe we should proselytize, go out here on the corner with a knock on doors like the Jehovah's Witness, but I think, you know, we don't talk about the being a Unitarian, what it means. I know when I was in Seattle, we started talking to this man on the bus, and he said, you know, I should go because I really think like that. And he said, I'll consider it, you know. And I think there are a lot of people who think like this, more and more. And when I listen to this young man, his Tyson is his name, the Neil Tyson, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is an astrophysicist. Now, I knew his father very well, and I knew him as a little kid when his father would bring him, because we were working at this place called HARU Act, HARU Act. It was the anti-poverty program that Adam Clayton Powell founded in New York, and we had organized the after-school study center, these teachers and I, and Cyril Tyson, who was Neil deGrasse's father, was the person who was working under the guy who, no, I'll think of his name, the one who did he and his wife did the study about the black children. Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, okay, I'll think of his name in a minute. You can cross this out while I'm trying to think. But anyway, but Cyril Tyson was our boss. And he used to bring his little boys down there. He had these two little boys, and they were always running around. You know, we'd talk to them, and you know, they could read perfectly well, but they'd come in and and one of them was Neil deGrasse Tyson. I saw him one day, and I said, "I know you. You know, you were a pain in the neck. You know." So he said, "Oh yeah, he remembers coming down there." But anyway, his father was a devout Catholic, and now. The son is definitely not. I don't really think, he doesn't say he's an atheist, but he talks like a Unitarian.
Mhm.
You know, he really does. So if I ever see him again, I'm going to tell him that's what he is. But you know, but anyway,
Face it.
yeah. But you see that, you know, a person like that, and the way, you know, that they are cultivating a whole group of people around them there. And when you look on the internet, you'll see that he has a whole cadre of people around him who believe in what he's talking about as far as astrophysics is concerned. But his attitude about whether or not God is out there is also very important. And you know, I'd like to see them become a part of some kind of a. I think it's important to me to be a part of a society, of a group of people who felt like I did, and so that's what I've enjoyed about USG. And I think that they are coming along on the racial issues if we stick with it and if we keep working at it, as we try to do in ending racism.
Your friends are really critical of you coming here.
Oh, indeed. Oh, Marietta, we're not going to see you in heaven. That's terrible. Oh, yeah, I get real pained. Well, I'm going to pray for you. Well, I'm going to continue to pray for you.
Well, but you're going to be in heaven. I mean, if there's a heaven, how can you
Not
not
Well,
be
but
there?
you haven't been washed in the blood of Jesus. I would certainly not want to do that anyway. But that's what they feel. And they feel that,
deeply.
hmm?
Deeply.
And with everything that you do here at this church,
Mhm.
we don't have time for anybody else.
That's what my sister says, so. But
Well,
I
Sister
do.
Bill, you find time for lots of things outside of the church.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What else do you do?
Well, first of all, I have a little great grandnephew whom I love, so I play with him a lot. And I love my niece and grandniece and all these relatives, so I spend a lot of time with them. And then I do a lot of stuff with the United Nations Association, and not as much as I used to now, but I did a lot of things. We used to do a lot of things with them. And then I work with the school, not much as much as I did, but there is a woman there who works with the kids in their community relations and things like that, and she does a lot of things with.
It's not Lindelbaum, is it?
Oh no, it's Abington Junior High School, Abington High School, Abington High School, and so you know I do go with her on some of the things she does with her water project. We come down here to the waterworks, you know, and she does things with the United Nations Association. So I'm close to her. She's really wonderful. And I used to be very active with my NAACP, but I'm not that very active now. I've cut down a lot in the last 2 years. So I don't do as much as I used to.
Cut down to an overwhelming amount.
Well, because I really can't. I don't have the energy. I'm losing. That's why I'm leaving town. I don't have the energy to do all that stuff. I really don't, and I'm going to have to.
I understand that.
I'm going to have to cut back. And then I've got to go to the gym, you see, and that takes a lot. I got to go there.
You go to the gym?
Do I go to the gym? I see a lot of people around here who go there too. Yeah, Alice goes. And I said, Alice, please put some weights on that thing. She's funny. Oh, Marietta, I can't do that stuff you do. So. But I see a lot of people there. Yeah. So there we go.
So what else can we know about you?
That's it. I'm leaving to go with my daughter and be closer to my son, and so I can spend more time with my grandchildren. And my granddaughter already said she's looking forward to it. I was glad to hear that, because we're going to make clothes together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so she's very interested in that. So I said, well, that's one thing we can do together. Because the rest of the stuff she talks about, I don't know what she's talking about half the time. I don't. You know, because they're into stuff we don't know anything about. You turn that off. We're just talking, right? Have you turned that off?
No.
Oh, gosh. All right, we have to be finished now.